everyone has a unique personality. How do I get closer to who you are? What's your traits are, what you like, what you don't like, and I don't think it is ever a finished job. It's a constant learning, because you are evolving as a human being as well, and same thing at the marketplace. The dynamic is evolving. So, and interestingly, if my education, I'm a material science engineer. I was supposed to make steel. And while I was studying, I think the world around us was changing quite drastically. And in fact, I got my first job in a steel plant, but instead of working on a steel plant, it was mostly to work on the automation. And that's where I got my first interaction with the software. And working in a factory and writing automation software over there is little different, because it requires a lot of complexity, and I mean, any mistake can be really expensive in terms of lives and money. So I think it was a great experience, that helps you learn about cautious, and how you do very disciplined programming early in your life. And with that, I think it just happened. I ended up joining a telco in California, and it was Pacbell. It is way back when AT&T didn't require every regional bell out there. So I was part of Pacbell, and then AT&T acquired it. So I ended up in a telecom industry, and since then, pretty much I've been in telco, mobile, advertising, and marketing, and playing in that field only. And in that process, I ended up meeting three of my other co-founder, who very strongly believe that the whole Asia, I would say anything east of west, almost completely missed the violent digital era. I mean, there was absolutely no infrastructure, and it was completely gone. And sometimes, when they say innovation can be faster if you just take incremental, if you just take a massive leap rather than making incremental jumps. So what happened in Asia, since they never had any digital infrastructure, the wireless came in a very different way. So if you see, the sort of wireless revolution that you're seeing in China, India, and number of subscriber and all those, the main reason is basically they just completely missed that part, and they directly moved on to 3G, 4G, and 5G. And that's where you see the adoption and cycles are so fast as compared to this part of the world. And these three founders, like 14 years ago, were so convinced that, if you want to do something in mobile, I think we need to be in that part of the world. We need to start from there, because that's where the need is, that's where the customers are, and that's where the innovation will happen. So I really like their passion and story, and the willingness to execute around it. And then I decided to leave AT&T and Virgin Mobile. These are the two companies that I was working over here, and decided to join them. And so far it has been a really good story, coming from east, and expanding towards the western world. And now we are back in US, which is once again the land of opportunity. If you're doing anything, you want to grow it big, you have to have a presence here. So that's the story of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in like late 2019 or no, late 2018, I spent a little bit of time in Hong Kong, and I was learning about how Huawei in particular it started out as like a huge telecom infrastructure provider, laying, and like kind of the advantages that were involved with starting from scratch and laying modern tech down in like the late 20 teens, rather than like how in America we have like years and years of old infrastructure that we just keep building on top of in our telecom.
Yeah. No, it's a very simple thing. Sometimes it's easy to burn down the house and build afresh. It's like burn down the forest, and then the fertility of the soil goes up drastically. Versus you keep on making modification, and beyond a point, it actually becomes very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are some of the things that you can see in Asia. If nothing is existent, then you have all kinds of flexibility to go for the best, and I think that's what has happened in many areas.
So before we get into InMobi and what you're working on today, there's another part of your LinkedIn that I wanted to ask you about, where I saw you're doing some work as a DJ right now. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So I think, it was so funny when you were talking about your story. You had a little bit interest in the music, and you were doing programming, And the same thing for us. I really was into music, right from the beginning, but my early part of my life was in India, and at that point of time, there was no Spotify or something and all that, and essentially, music was really not the first option for your career. Especially if you're not trained and if you're really not pursuing it. It was really hard. So mostly it was at the pleasure or occasional listening and all those things, and that's where I left it and went back to studies and all. But and pretty much never picked it up, all the way till until recently, 3 years ago. And I was always listening to those things, but never doing something or just making any of one of my music or going deeper into it. But as they say, every problem comes with the opportunity. So when you were in COVID, pretty much you were locked up inside a room, and I thought, how do I kill the time? All the time, if you just do work and work, it was becoming pretty mundane, frustrating, and depressing for everyone. So I ordered a small DJ machine. I thought, why don't let's try something? This is one area, and I ordered a small DJ machine, and I started trying few things out. Uh, and I really liked it, and so much so, then then I ended up regretting, why did I order the beginner machine? I need something better, and then you go from there. Then I got a bigger one and next one, and I think I really invested good 2 3 years. I would say 2 years on it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I started learning as I go. And to be honest, right now I just love it so much that I want to be associated with that, and I do plays occasionally for my friends, family, or sometimes if I'm in Bangalore, even for some clubs as well.
That's awesome. So now you got like a pretty big setup while you're running like 4 decks, doing some complex mixes going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome, dude.
finally I'm on the 4X, and yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, I actually worked as a DJ for like 3 years in the
Yeah,
past. It was a lot of
there you
fun.
go. And for software programmer or engineers, I think it's a lot easy because music, I think, is pattern and math.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see lots of people that come on the show that are involved in music in some way or another. It's just it seems like a really great escape that jives well with the way engineers'
Yeah,
brains work.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, by the way, do you have a DJ name?
yeah. I adopted a name called DJ Sicario.
Nice.
It's with a E because I didn't get the I. Someone already taken it. So 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 DJ Sicario. It is one of the movie that I saw, and Benicio del Toro was the hero, and I really liked that movie. So I wanted that name, but since Sicario with the I was taken, so I still took the name and I replaced I with E, and I got it on SoundCloud and everywhere else.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. Well, so tell me a little bit about how you originally got involved with InMobi, where you're at today.
So, I think, as I told you, I met these three founders, and at that point of time, they knew that they wanted to do something in the mobile area, and but there was not enough clarity that what do you want to do. I mean, it's pretty vast, and then I ended up joining them, and like I said, every startup, if you see the story, I think the first product, most probably 9 out of 10 cases, never see the day of the light, or it's never a successful product. But if you have entrepreneurship, then you start figuring things out from there, and then changes, and then once you find the market fit, that is what become your original idea. So same thing at InMobi, we started with something called, I think you all know the concept of Groupon, where you get these coupons and deals. So we launched a product in Mumbai, in India, which was basically a SMS based Groupon, and I would say that product was way ahead of its time in 2008. Where you would send some SMS and say, hey, deals on jeans, or maybe deals on sneakers or something, and then it will come back with some of the offers that are going on in that location. And imagine in 2008, and this is before iPhone was launched. It was launched in this year itself, but imagine the phone prior to that. So there was no mobile web concept. So everything was mostly on the SMS. That's why we chose that medium. And what it was doing is, as soon as you basically throw these keywords, it will throw them onto a search engine, and it will return with a lot of options for you, where you can go and see what kind of deals going on. Idea looked well on paper, and even we implemented and executed it, but we what we felt in the market is it was little ahead of time, and advertisers were really not sure. So everyone was liking it, but nobody was paying it. And so we were trying to figure out what do we do, but right there and then, this new iPhone came in, and when it came, I think we just saw, you know the power of this medium, and we really believe that this is the future, and this is what eventually is going to change the whole thing. So immediately we just converted the idea from SMS to mobile web based, because app was still very relatively new, how it will happen, but using that medium, we started converting our idea from SMS to web based. And actually on day one, not only we had the paying customer, in fact our server crashed. And
Wow.
yeah, because we were just running on a three four machine web server, and for SMS that was kind of enough. It was like a semi synchronous process. You get a request and you do that. Once we saw those symptoms, we knew that this is the idea and this is what we are going to pursue. And the InMobi was born, which is today the mobile advertising and marketing platform. Right from SSP to DSP and every other component. But that was really the beginning.
Nice. And so I see in your background you have both InMobi and another logo that says Glance. Can you tell me what Glance is?
So InMobi, I think for good 10 years, InMobi worked as or rather, a big part of our offering is a marketing cloud, which is mostly a B2B business. We work with various advertiser to basically help them reach out to the relevant user based on the proposition that they have. And at the same point of time, we work with various publisher to help monetize their property, understanding their user, what their behaviors are, and what are the proposition which might be useful for them. So pretty much it's a marketplace. It's a two-phase marketplace, where we help advertiser reaching out to the right user, and we help publisher monetizing to the monetizing their own user as well. Uh, Glance is something very different, and it's actually our B2C offering. And if you see what is happening in the world, is basically earlier the media business, or rather the way you see the media consumption, was pretty limited. You always had these big production houses, these movie studios, and a studio like yourself, a podcast and all those things, where everything is managed, and there are few people who will produce something, and there will be a lot of consumption by the user outside. We live in a snackable economy right now, where video is a commodity. People can, any one of us, me and you, can be creator. And if we are doing something, we are putting our genius into it, or, innovation can come from anyone, and you never know. Any 10 seconds, 15 seconds, or 16-second clip can be popular and can be viral all over the world. So if you think about it, what is happening over there, there's really an explosion of content, and a disruption is happening. Every day there are influencers who are being born. Some kids are just 15 year 16-year old, and they have bigger power, or rather, uh, bigger influencer on user, as compared to one of the biggest rock star in their heydays. So Glass is really, part of that community, because everywhere when the ecosystem explode, you need to figure out how user will get better value out of it. So Glass is really a whole suite of B2C customer that we have, and we work with a lot of OEM, like Xiaomi, Oppo, Samsung, where what we realize is basically, despite of all the real estate, there is one property which is lock screen, uh, which is completely not utilized. People stare at it, or they just play with it, but every time you have to like click 6 or 7 times to even go to the relevant information. And let's say if you're just sitting and you want to pass your time, or you are in a train, or you're just going somewhere, rather than just having those 7 8 clicks, can I convert your lock screen into your own personal, uh, what do you call, a zone where everything,
Like a feed?
yes, feed, everything is designed around you, what your interests are, from the video binging to news to politics to sport, and everything right over there. So that is really what our vision is, basically your work on your doorstep, in form of your lock screen. Not only that, it has a app version as well, which is Raposo, which is a short video content, highly popular among that part of the generation. Not only that, we have made it a little bit more interesting because it has inclusion of live commerce in it as well. Because the influencers are there to basically tell people what they know and what they feel passionate about. It could be an object or it could be something that what they are doing. And a lot of people, they see it, they like it, but after that, the experience breaks right there. What do you do after that? Let's say you are showing something, and hey, I really like it, but what do I do after that? So we also saw a big opportunity. What if when influencer is showing or showcasing something or demonstrating something, if there is a commerce option there as well, so it will open up another earning potential for the influencer as well. And at the same time, it will create a very seamless, interesting buying experience for our user as well. So how we are doing things differently in Glance and Reposo is not only these feeds. Some of these feeds and these live shots are interactive. You can actually interact with them, not only with the influencer, but you can lead all the way till the purchase as well. So coming from our marketing background from InMobi, we believe this is where the world is heading, and that's what we are trying to glance, and we hope the world will eventually converge, and this will become your new media for the masses as compared to what we have seen in the past.
That's really cool. So, are you integrating other content platforms, and like pulling content from like TikTok or Instagram or your news source and putting it together on Glance, or is Glance its own platform?
Yeah, so it depends. We are definitely not integrating from TikTok or Instagram and all those things, but there is some relevant content that I think we feel is useful for user and all those things. So those that component come over there. So for example, newsfeed, there are so many news channels, there's so many specialists out there, depending on what sports, what region, what location you are, and we do collaborate with people on the basis where we see there is a more value to our user. Everything that we design, everything that we do is basically user is the center of that.
Makes sense. That's cool. So, h- how is it? What's the relationship like between like the Glance teams and the InMobi teams and at the company?
So we clearly believe that the team needs to be self-reliant and they need to move really fast. So end of the day, if we need to help each other, it is just like any other company. If we work with any other partner, that's how you do it. Both teams are quite independent. They have their own roadmap, and they execute based on their own velocity and circumstances. Yes, we do collaborate, we do partnership with each other, but from all practical purpose, these are two different companies, so that they are not, one is not burdening other, and then they own have their own creative freedom to basically go in the direction that makes sense for them.
Got it. So, where are you spending most of your time today?
So the both team and not only these team, I think even within these group, the way we operate and how teams are set up is basically every small team is their own. You know, they have their own CEO, they have their own CTO. Because the thing is, the entire team makes call what is best for their group, and then they do that, and it allows us to basically really breed the culture of a startup within a startup. You go, you figure things out, and you hack things, and you make what best for you. You manage your budget, you manage your strength, and you get the right speed that you want. But at the same point of time, I think we do have a very long legacy of building some really good stuff, and having a really competent tech team all across. So there is a common foundation that is available to everyone who wants to use and who wants to basically save time and build on top of it. And at the same time, there are few things that actually don't change. The cultural aspect of it. The discipline of being a good engineer to a really good engineer. How do you write? You are a programmer yourself. You can write a code, and then you can write a really good code. So and that knowledge should not get lost somewhere. It should always, you should always increase the knowledge base, and it should be available to everyone or every new person who's joining into the team. So I work with this various team to make sure what is the minimum denominator and the commonality that we need to create as part of our engineering culture and engineering infrastructure that can save time, so that build once, but it can be utilized something. At the same point of time, keep an eye on the innovation that can happen in every corner, and then since you have a because I'm seeing things at a 30,000 feet, then you immediately know, hey, I think this part can be utilized by this group because they are also struggling with a similar kind of problem. So help team stop reinventing the wheel, leverage across whatever is there, beg, borrow, steal, apply it all over the place. A cutting edge culture all across so that the team can thrive on it, grow in their professional and personal career. And at the same point of time, help them to basically lay out the foundation that will save time for us and help allow them to focus on the product and launch it fast in the market.
That's cool. So you're providing the like objectives and strategy for the teams within your company.
Yeah. And the other way you can say they are really sharp kid, and there is a teacher who is helping them to basically finish their assignment on time and really be excel on it.
Nice. So where do you get your news to stay up to date on everything? Like, I guess, sorry, a more intelligent question would be, how do you keep your finger on the pulse of what customers are looking for and guiding your teams towards those objectives?
So I think, in my opinion, I think there are three things that are quite important. First thing is obviously you need to keep in touch with the industry you are in, what's happening. So for example, if I take example of Glance, I mean, I have everything on my phone: TikTok, YouTube, um, Reposo, Glance, our own app, and and I do spend significant amount of time over there. Not from the content point of view, but what I also, I try to understand things a little bit in a deeper way. What are they doing, where it's heading. And to be honest, one thing that I felt is, when I started DJing and all, I figured out, how do I want to stream it? Can I play it for 50 people, 60 people? And when you do that, you actually yourself become user. And when you yourself become user, you start to think, oh, this app helped me get online and start streaming in 5 minutes while I got stuck over here. The steps were too complex or it was not user friendly. So it's like it really helps you to eat your own dog food concept, where you can see, hey, this guy is really doing good, and this is the better way of doing it. If I'm a creator and if I want to be online in 5 minutes, what should be done? So I think that one part is understanding and being part of the ecosystem all the time. So you really learn what's happening and you make sure that we are one step ahead of that. One is that. The second is obviously I think we deal with tremendous amount of scale and complexity into our system, and we have been actually quite at the forefront of building our system right from the beginning, and we were quite torchbearer in that sense. One of the company from Asia who ran data center across the globe and all those things, and we have been there and done that. But I think the world has changed really fast. If you see, the cloud offering has come, has taken up the world by storm. And at this point of time, we, 3 years ago, we decided, running your own DC and all those things may not be a wise move because it just takes a lot of time. So we started working strategically with some of the three big names, GCP, AWS, and Azure, and even we have business and tech teams in China, and we work with Ali Cloud as well. So we are one of the one company who pretty much work very deeply with all the four cloud providers that you can imagine: GCP, Azure, Ali Cloud, and AWS, and that is also one source of information where we always connected with what's happening out there ecosystem. Who are their big customer? What are they working on? How are they solving? And then there's so much to learn. I think that is, I would say, the second medium of getting that information, and I try to basically do that along with my teams. And last but not least is basically the problem is the mother of all innovation. So the very very specific environment that we are working on, the challenges that we are solving, and some of the greatest mind and rock star engineer that we have in our team. I think I love my interaction with them because that's where you see a completely new out of the box thinking. So I think these three things for me, I would say, is what is my source to keep myself updated and what's going on. And I clearly believe in learning is a lifelong process and you never stop. And once you get those perspective, it forces you to figure out how you want to add value to existing knowledge base. And I think that's a virtuous cycle that we all need to be in.
Is it challenging working with all four different cloud providers? Do you run into any difficulties?
I think it is a little tricky because every cloud provider has its own philosophy, how they want to do things. So what we have done is basically we have uh, and 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 I would say one is bad, one is good, because we work with all three. They all have a specific strength, and as a consumer, we are quite aware of who is good at what. And what we do is basically that's where we are very careful in figuring out that who do we want to use in these kind of applications. So when you have a user first lens, everything starts from there, and you start to getting to all answer. That if this is the kind of experience I want for my user, and these are the things that will be part of my system implementation, then who are the provider and who are the people who will help me get there faster. So the key thing is if you want to build products fast and something that is best for the user, that possibly the best thing that you can imagine, and then try it out, then you start to ask question, who is going to help me get there, and what are the things that I'm going to use over there. So we always apply that lens versus, hey, here is I need to fit this provider somewhere in between to build this. So we make that call very cautiously and very judicially, very strictly, that who is going to basically be the right partner for us to achieve the result that we want. And once that is there, everything else falls apart.
That's really cool. It sounds like, I've been learning a lot about cloud recently just due to some guests we've had on the podcast. Like a couple days ago, we had a company called Spot, and they really, one of their offerings is that they really help with figuring out when and where to utilize cloud, like compute, that it costs the least amount possible. And there's like all these, every cloud provider has like a different method of offering their compute up for grabs when it's not being utilized very much. And this company Spot like helps you find those times and like areas of utilization where you can purchase compute for like 90% less. I thought that was really interesting, that there's like this whole economy just around saving costs on the cloud because everybody's spending so much money with them.
So I think any tech decision, end of the day, comes down to three things. One is basically the value that your system and your program is going to give to the user. Then efficiency of compute, what you want to call it, performance, efficiency, compute. I would put everything into that bucket. And last but not least, that everyone worries about is the cost, because there's no limit to it. I can be as fast as possible, but what if it is just costing me an ounce, and by the time I'm done with it, I have nothing left. So you always have to basically juggle these three balls, and then figure out what is my best combination. So, for example, there are applications where, or rather things where 1 second and one millisecond may not make a very big difference. In those decisions, you may not uh, uh, worry too much about it. So, for example, if you take human eyes, we can figure out 60 frames per second. That's where the eyes can capture. And if you are building a visual product, visual science or something, and then you are trying to basically get more frame per second and doing all this processing, it's all waste, because human eyes are not going to basically appreciate anything that you're doing. Same thing goes to the pixel as well. Like 4K, 8K, 16K, 32K. But the thing is, if your screen size is that limited, the density is not going to help anything. This is exact. So compute is nothing but that calculation, what you really need. And a lot of people in tech world, that what I have seen is apply 80-20 or 90-10 rule, where almost 80% of what you want you actually get by spending 20%, by spending comfortably what is in your range. The remaining 20% gets very hard, and that increases, and every improvement beyond that increases exponentially. So for example, I want to hit something in 1 millisecond and I'm almost at 1 millisecond. But hey, I want to get half millisecond. So possibly half millisecond could be four times as expensive as reaching or doing some processing at millisecond. So is that worth? So the question that you always ask, if I do this in half millisecond, what will happen? And if you are not able to justify your ROI, and if you know that you are never going to recover that loss, cost and money, then in my opinion, that is basically just wasting a lot of money and not really gaining something. So that is also one of the job of a CTO, that what is the right equation that you get, and you may not get it right one or two times, but you get better at it, and that eventually you figure out how it works. So how do you manage these three dimensions are always the key, and every cloud provider have different way of doing things, and there are many ways. So for example, as you were talking about the company spot and all those things, you can be little opportunistic. You when the rates are low, you take more and more instance and you try to finish more of your processing, and when the rates are peak, you actually start releasing them, and then you utilize what you did earlier. So there are like I told you, there is no right wrong way. There are many multiple ways this problem can be addressed and can be attacked. So based on the circumstances, based on this, your specific needs, I think that's the balance that one needs to create on all these three sides.
So I want to hear a little bit more about InMobi's offerings. I have in my notes you have a product called Pulse. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think so we are a very big believer on that gratification and attribution is very important. Whatever you do, and whatever anyone is doing, the visibility or analytics, or the data around is quite important. What is happening. So Pulse is also a great product in my opinion. When a lot of advertiser or even publisher or something, they run campaigns with us and they do certain things, Pulse really help them to collect significant data points from the actual user outside, and what exactly people are thinking about it, what they really are doing with it. And it's very flexible. They can customize it in a way, based on the information that their team really wants to understand, really what is happening out there. So you can integrate your advertising and marketing campaign along with some data gathering as well at the same point of time, so that you are getting a constant feed, and fine tuning, and addressing the need of your customer in a best possible way. So Pulse is an integrated survey product along with that helps you collect the right analytics around your own user, about the sentiments, about the usefulness, and any kind of attributes you want to collect uh, around your campaign objective, or goods.
So it's for taking in like the qualitative data, like a
Yeah, I think like I said, you can customize it in any format. You can create a sentiment analysis. You can create a highly qualitative index around it, or maybe just the trending, or maybe just see what's happening out there. Comparative study, or just thought process of a user before launching something new. So that's the beauty of this product. You decide what structure you want, and it help you implement and get those data points.
So have you had to implement any like natural language understanding AI into that to
Yes. So I think everything pretty much we do. So I think if you understand a little bit about the marketplace itself, um, we are living in a world where you have billions of users, and the billions of users seeing maybe trillions of proposition campaigns and ads out there. And same thing with these publishers that we work. I mean, they have enormous scale, and I would be exaggerating if I say this is also another rocket science. How do you make the best possible decision for all three entities? Advertiser, publisher, user, or even if I take example of Glance, everyone has a unique personality. How do I get closer to who you are? What's your traits are, what you like, what you don't like, and I don't think it is ever a finished job. It's a constant learning, because you are evolving as a human being as well, and same thing at the marketplace. The dynamic is evolving. So there is a huge amount of data that gets analyze to understand, really what is happening, and then algorithm that is making call on them, and at the same point of time, on real time basis, the feedback flows back into those algorithms to make the right tuning, and any attribute, even time of the day of the week, seasonality, cultural, social fabric, anything can have a very big impact. And sometimes you can predict it, and sometimes you can't even predict it. So all that magic is basically based on the data science and algorithm and the AI that we run in the backend. And I think this is one of the most important part, or rather, I would say that really the core reactor of everything that we do. And in today's world, data is new oil, and there's nothing you can do unless until you understand what exactly is happening. So pretty much a very important part of what we do.
So when you're thinking about like the strategy in the future in ad tech, are there any emerging technologies that you're really thinking about how to position yourself for in the future, like AR and VR? And I know I've been seeing like articles coming out about how Facebook is like racing to build a metaverse, and I don't really buy it. But what kind of emerging technologies are you thinking about?
To be honest, I think science and innovation is pretty interesting. And the one thing that I have started doing right now is I don't deny any existence, any idea, because what I have learned in 10 years, that in 10 years ago, if someone would have said, uh, you know. Uh, there will be car that will be running at this speed, and all these hypercar, they'll be in problem because someone would come and create this battery, and you'll be able to do 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, and like 6 Gs will be pumped into your chest when you're doing that acceleration. You will say, hey, that's crap. Or somebody would come and say, hey, there'll be a flying taxi, the people will fly over there and all those things, and possibly we would have ignored all that. But I think what I have learned, I mean, this world is changing so fast. So yeah, I do understand your sentiments when you are saying VR and metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg is talking about. And I would say, I think, at least especially on the virtual side, it is a technology that is there for quite some time, and I think it has not grown to a level where it needs to. But nothing can be discounted today. So what we need to do is keep a very close eye on what's happening, and always be part of that, that innovation that is happening out there, because you never know what will pick up. So you take the right amount of input, and you always remain in a ready state. And when it becomes big, I'm going to double down on it. I'm going to spend really good time on it. But yeah, I think AI is not a niche anymore. This is basically a lifeline for anyone. If you're not using data, if you are not using artificial intelligence, or not applying a human like intelligence to anything you are doing, I think the time is very less. All those things who are behind, or not jumped onto this bandwagon, possibly I think will become obsolete very soon. And AR and VR is also, for me, is one more dimension. And you never know. Right now there are little physical constraints. You really have to put that bulky device, and some people may not be comfortable, and it gives you I would say the user experience is not as good where it becomes a mainstream. But the day you learn to figure that out, I mean, think about it. Maybe possibly we'll be doing this interview sitting side by side. You could be in some other location, I could be in some other location, but we are virtually at one place, right? That's really the promise of the metaverse. So I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years down the line, our thought process will change completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people get proved wrong saying stuff like that all the time.
Yeah. I don't know whether you remember or not. I think 3 years ago there was a there was a concert, and it was a famous song with Snoop Dogg and Tupac were singing together, and it was a hologram using Microsoft hologram technology, and he was just right there singing those verses, and it was quite exciting at that point of time. It was completely cutting edge, but I think some of those things are happening. People are using hologram, and they are being your virtual assistant.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally see a world where lots of like entertainment and concerts are holograms up there,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I mean, the musician in me cries a little bit
yeah.
that it won't be as like live, but on it, I mean, I can totally see, I don't know, 20 years from
and
now.
and and the other thing is basically, as I told you, the need and the problem really drives the innovation. So I know many industry where virtual reality has already become mainstream, especially in the medical field. One of the expert doctor, if he's doing a surgery, I mean, a lot of people are participating virtually in that surgery and really seeing how it's being done rather than
Yeah.
seeing the video and all, because there's nothing like actually seeing it. So I know medical is using it to a greater extent. Automobile industry, construction. I think VR is already mainstream in all those AutoCAD designing and all those areas.
Yeah, we actually had a company on the podcast a while ago that's utilizing augmented reality for
Yeah.
firefighters.
Yes.
And it's super cool. Like it, so the camera can like see through the smoke and outline objects in the room for the firefighters, and makes that job a lot safer, which is really sick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I want to hear a little bit about the culture at InMobi. I know you mentioned in the past you've worked at some really big telecoms like AT&T and Virgin Mobile. How is it different? What are some things that you took from those companies and brought with you?
I think every company has its own culture, has its own flavor, and culture is nothing. Is basically how uh, the behavior that most of the people exhibit at one place is what gets defined as culture. And obviously, the things are a little different at telco. And for the right reason, as I said, there's nothing right and wrong. Generally there is a conservative thinking because any disruption or anything could be quite damaging. They live under one of the most stringent regulations, so you have to think twice before taking any call or any risk and something. At InMobi, I think what we wanted to create, and one thing what our one of the most important for us is basically how we can let our employee just think wide and big. We are really into thinking big. I mean, people, you are slave to your own inhibition. It's all the bottleneck is in your mind, and what we felt is basically through through the culture, or rather the behavior, or the traits that we all display in the company, can we help employee come out of their own shell, come out of their own inhibitions. So thinking big is very important for us. No idea is bad, or this is stupid and all. If something is, think big, and the best way to find out whether it's good or bad is try it out. That's what you do it. So we really promote ideology where you think big, you are not scared of taking risk, because the failure sometimes could be the best teachers that you can ever imagine. That's how you learn in life. And be entrepreneur. In entrepreneur, you own the consequences, and that's why you apply all the learning and you start all over again. Thinking big, taking risk, and ownership is not enough if you are really not executing on it. So what entrepreneurship mindset that we see as a big value of our culture is basically how do you take an idea and make it a reality and really figure out what is happening. So I think these are some of the aspects that are really very important for our culture. So if you ask me to sum these values, basically think big, be entrepreneur, think positive, take risk, and take ownership. As long as you are doing this, I think the good things will happen, and that's really the core of what we do in every team here.
So what does it look like in practice? Like what are some things you do on a daily basis to reinforce those?
To be honest, we live by all these value on daily basis. The idea and the decision making is very decentralized at InMobi. If you think about it in glance generally, or even at IMC, sometimes when we have meeting, there are 200 people who are looking at a demo, and there are ideas flowing from all over the place. But then at the same point of time, there is some method to madness, and you see, hey, let's do a prioritization, because once you apply entrepreneurship judgment over there, you know you will never be able to pull off 100 things, but then it forces you to prioritize that what are the 10 things or 5 things I'm going to do out of these 100 insane idea, so that I can produce the most value for our customers. So it is a funnel where you don't want to stop it at the top level. In most of the places, the idea generation itself can be limited, so you are hardly getting anything, and then you are putting a prioritization. So you are basically, end of the day, what you're getting is really drop of the ocean. Everything else got filtered in some way. So our idea is, our concept is, get as much idea as possible. Let people basically defend their idea. Let them be passionate about it. Let them tell what this can bring, and then apply a brutal prioritization, like your life depends on it, and then go for it. Once you go for it, then we also are a company who celebrate failure, because failure is just one part of the outcome. I mean, there can only be two outcomes: success and failure. So every idea there is half chances that either you will succeed or you'll fail. So I don't think we are worried about, or we are scared of failure, and it's actually gets celebrated at InMobi, because once you fail, you exactly know what not to do.
Yep.
and then when you are trying it next time, you're getting more and more wiser, and eventually you will see enough failure in your life that the only option left for you is actually success. So that's how we do this, and that's how we live these values in our life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I talk to a lot of cybersecurity people, and that reminds me of a common thing that they say, which is never let a good disaster go to waste.
Yeah. And when it comes to security and privacy, I think every incident is very precious, because you need to do everything so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. So working in advertising, speaking of security and privacy, how do you think about like trying to find the line between offering ads that are personalized in a good way and offering ads that might be seen as like too personal, and like, how did you know that?
I'm one of, to be honest, my personal belief, and as a company, we are one of the, we very strongly believe in privacy, and we very strongly believe that this data belong to user. It's very precious to them, and especially when you apply the lens of advertising and marketing. To be honest, I don't think it requires a very intrusive level of personal information. Why would someone want to do that? So as a company, we believe, everything that, and once again, that 80-20 rule that I was telling you. Uh, most of the cohort level information, or what you call non-PIA information, is enough to basically understand who you are. Because if you think about it, the proposition and the news feed and all those things, do I really need to know your personal information? No. I what I'm talking about, some harmless behavioral traits that most of the time right people are telling themselves, hey, I like this news corner, I like this sport, and then yeah, or rather, I like this kind of music. And I think that's is enough for majority of the work that is being done. There have been instances where people try to exploit that. We are quite dead against it. We have a very strong privacy and security program within the company. In fact, to be honest, there is a very strong committee where a lot of members from very diverse part of the company, from HR to legal to engineer to product, participate. I myself chair that group within the company, along with our general counsel, and not even a single product or anything that we do without the approval of this process. So that at least there are 6 and 7 set of people who are going through uh, the whole logic, and they are making sure that even if one of us is slipping, or rather, not paying attention to something, there are 7 more people to look at it from another set of perspective, and make sure that we are not doing anything where the user information will ever be at risk. So for us, it's very important. To me, it's a trust thing, and once you lose it, it's very hard to bring it back. So we want to make sure that there is never a time in our life where uh, uh, our user don't trust us.
Yeah, I mean, that's super important. And I think it's cool that you've put together such an interdisciplinary team for that purpose, because it's important to have all those different thought processes involved. I mean, the legal team's going to think of different things than the engineers and than the sales, you know. Everyone's got their specialties, and on such an important issue, it's really important to have every possible like viewpoint on it.
Yep. Yep.
Well, that's awesome. And so before we wrap up, is there anything that we didn't get to touch on that you want to make sure we get out there to the world?
I think, I guess, one thing I would say is we are living in one of the most exciting time and most challenging as well, especially with last 2 years that we have seen, and a lot of people got impacted with those pandemic. But more so, I think this is one of that period where the innovation has opened up so much opportunities for young engineers or young people out there. Where uh, they just need to basically let all their inhibition go and think what they're best at. They should not worry about, this whole world is designed where everyone is there to tell you, hey, you are not good at this, you are not good at this, you are not good at this. And in my opinion, that's not important. Let not worry about who, when someone else is telling you are not good at this thing. What is most important is what you think you are good at. And you could be a programmer and you could be a musician at the same point of time. There is no fixed taboo, or there is no fixed combination over there. So find your inner self, and your role model is no some is not somewhere outside. It's actually you 5 years down the line. And I remember, Matthew McConaughey, in one of his Oscar speech, he said a lot of people get confused chasing the role models, but the thing is, most of the time you fail because you're chasing someone who you are not, right? That is just an infatuation. You just like that persona. But exactly what the role model that you should be chasing is what you want to be 5 and 10 years down the line. And if you get that clarity sooner in your life, it will be far more easier because it's you who you are chasing. So everything that you are doing comes naturally to you, and you have all the strength to be that person 5 years down the line. So if you can align your